Discover the ideas that will shape tomorrow's world.
Have you ever driven past a massive new skyscraper going up and just thought to yourself, how do they even begin to budget for something like that? I mean, it seems like every time we hear about a major construction project, it's always the same story: delays and costs that just spiral out of control. Well, today, we're going to crack that code. We're diving deep into the hidden costs that so often derail these massive projects, and we'll look at a new framework that could, finally, bring it all back under control. Right? It's the big question. It's the one that keeps developers, investors, and, honestly, taxpayers up at night. You start with what seems like a solid budget, but somewhere down the line, it all goes sideways. It's an incredibly common frustration, and the real reason is often buried in the costs you can't even see. So, to really get this, you have to think about two different kinds of costs. On one hand, you have the hard costs. This is the physical stuff, right? The steel, the concrete, the wages for the crew on site. You can see it, you can touch it. But then there are the soft costs. And these are the invisible ones: the design fees, the permits, all the project management, the legal work. They're like the invisible blueprint of expertise that holds the whole thing together. And, as we're about to find out, these are the costs that can absolutely break the bank. All right, so let's get into the scale of this. Just how big of a deal are these so-called invisible costs? Okay, get ready for this. According to some fantastic new research from Farouk and his colleagues, in these really complex modern building projects, soft costs can account for a staggering 75% of the total budget. Yeah, you heard that right. 3/4 of the entire cost isn't even the building itself. It's this incredibly complex web of services and fees needed just to make it happen. And this quote just nails the real-world impact. Project owners are basically trying to navigate a minefield of expenses they can't see. They have no real way to calculate their return on investment accurately, which just creates this huge cycle of financial risk before a single shovel even hits the ground. Now, you'd think, hey, we've got all this modern tech, that should solve the problem, right? Well, enter Building Information Modeling, or BIM. It was supposed to make everything clearer, but instead, it actually added a whole new, tricky layer to this cost puzzle. So, what is BIM anyway? Well, think of it like a super detailed 3D digital twin of a building. It's an amazing tool that pulls everything together: design, schedules, cost data, all into one interactive model. It helps architects and engineers work together and spot potential problems before they even happen. But, and this is a big but, using BIM creates this whole new class of soft costs. Suddenly, you need to hire specialized BIM managers, pay for expensive software licenses for the entire team, and fund the constant, ongoing effort of keeping that digital model perfectly up to date. And this brings us right to the core problem the researchers found. There was no standard playbook for these new digital soft costs. They were just all over the map, completely fragmented, categorized differently from one project to the next, and almost never checked against what was actually happening in the real world. This just led to a ton of financial guesswork and, you guessed it, a lot of very nasty, very expensive surprises. So, the big question is, how do you map something that's basically invisible? Well, let's take a look at how this research team brought some serious order to the chaos. They used this really rigorous three-phase approach. First, they did a massive systematic review, and I mean massive. They combed through all the academic papers to find every single mention of a soft cost. That gave them a starting list of 31 different items. Then, they took that list to 16 industry experts, the people actually in the trenches managing these projects, to get their unfiltered, real-world feedback. And what happened next was really fascinating. The experts agreed with most of the costs from the research, but they also added 7 brand new ones that were totally specific to BIM projects, costs that the academic world hadn't even caught up with yet. So by combining scholarly research with that crucial on-the-ground knowledge, they ended up with the super comprehensive, validated list of 38 distinct soft costs. But you know, a list is just a list. The real genius here wasn't just identifying what the costs were, it was figuring out how to organize them. This led to a simple, powerful framework designed to finally make all those invisible costs visible, and more importantly, manageable. It turns out every single one of those 38 costs could be sorted using 2 beautifully simple ideas. First, project phase. That's just when the cost happens. Is it during planning, pre-construction, or the actual construction? And second, time category. This is all about how often the cost hits you. Is it a one-time thing, or is it a recurring expense you've got to keep paying? So let's break down that time category.
First up, you've got discrete costs. Think of these as the one-and-done expenses. They happen once, or maybe at a very specific milestone in the project. Like that one-time fee for a building permit, or the final payment you make for a green building certification. You pay it, it's over.
And on the other side, you have continuous costs. These are the ones that stick around. They keep coming back, or they add up over a long stretch of time. We're talking about things like that monthly license fee for your BIM software, or the ongoing salary you're paying your BIM coordinator for the entire length of the project.
And here you can see how it all clicks together. This is the framework in action. So for instance, you can see that levy fees are a discrete, one-time cost that happens during pre-construction, but the salary for a safety engineer is a continuous, recurring cost during the construction phase. All of a sudden, what was chaos now has a clear, predictable order. So what's the bottom line? What does this actually change out there in the real world? How does a framework like this really help people build with more confidence?
Well, the difference is just night and day. Without this framework, you're stuck dealing with scattered, hidden costs, and you're always waiting for the next unexpected budget shock. It's a high-risk guessing game. But with the framework, you get clear, itemized budget lines. You can actually create a predictable spending schedule. You turn that high financial risk into something you can control and manage. And, maybe for the first time ever, you can get a truly reliable calculation of the return on investment for tech like BIM.
And this isn't just a cool theory, it's a practical toolkit. Project managers can use this right now to create explicit lines in their budget for every single soft cost. They can write much clearer contracts that spell out exactly who is responsible for what. They can plan for those one-time costs by tying them to specific project milestones, and they can keep an eye on those recurring costs every month to make sure they stay on track. It basically turns budgeting from a dark art into a science. So, what this research gives us is a level of financial clarity that just didn't exist before for some of the world's most complex projects. And that leaves us with one final big thought. Now that we can actually map and control the true cost of building our cities, what kind of future can we now afford to build?